Hi, it's Lorna Jackson here, and in this video, I just want to talk to you about hypnotic inductions. Now, when I was a newly graduated hypnotherapist, I used to sit where you might be sitting today, wondering if I had to reinvent the wheel every single time a client walked through my door. I looked at the hundreds of inductions available and deepeners. Now, I'm not talking about rapid physical inductions like hand magnets or arm levitation. I'm talking about the staircase deepener, the progressive relaxations, the complex metaphors, and the deep counting sequences. Now, people often use the term hypnotic inductions and deepeners interchangeably, but they serve two distinct psychological functions. Now, the hypnotic induction is the doorway. It is the initial process used to shift the client's attention from the external world to their internal experience. So breaking their ordinary state of consciousness, and once the doorway is open and the client is in a light state of hypnosis, you then move into the hypnotic deepener. Now, the deepener is the staircase that takes them from that initial entry point down into a more profound and stable and a receptive state. Now, if the induction starts the car, the deepener is what actually drives the client into the deeper levels of the subconscious, where this is where the most impactful therapeutic work can take place. So I'm talking about the deepener part of the hypnotic session mainly today. Now, when I started my hypnotherapy career, I was genuinely confused. I felt this intense pressure to perform. I thought that if I didn't bring a brand new trick to every session, that my clients would get bored in their second or third session, or their analytical mind would figure it out and stop responding. Now, this is what I call the novelty trap. Now, we often feel that as practitioners, we need to impress the client with a variety to prove our worth. But here's the thing, after years of clinical experience, I realized that this idea, while exciting, it's not how the human brain actually works, because the mind does not get bored with a good pathway. The mind gets efficient with it. Now, think about the first time you drove to a new location. You were hyper aware. Your eyes were glued on the GPS. You weren't double checking street signs, and you probably felt a bit of tension in your shoulders. But by the 10th time you drove that exact same route, your body took over. You arrived at your destination and realized you hadn't consciously thought about the turns. Now, in hypnosis, when you use the same induction and deepener with the same client across multiple sessions, you're not just repeating words, you're building neurological momentum. Because the first time they are learning the road, the second time their system recognizes the road, and by the fourth time, their nervous system is driving that road automatically. So by repeating a successful induction and deepener, you are actually lowering the client's resistance. You're providing them with a familiar, safe doorway that they can step through faster and deeper every single time, instead of having to learn how to relax in a new way. Now, their brain recognizes the familiar clues and jumps straight to the destination. So to understand why this works, we have to look at how the brain processes patterns. Think of your favorite song. The first time you hear it, you notice the melody. The second time you start to anticipate the chorus. And by maybe the 20th time, your brain was already singing the next line before the singer even opened their mouth. Now, the brain loves patterns because patterns equal safety and low effort. And when a pattern is familiar, resistance drops and speed increases. Now, in a clinical setting, this means that the moment your client hears your opening lines, the same ones you used last week, their system remembers exactly what happened. Their breathing shifts faster. Their shoulders drop. They drop sooner. And the hypnosis begins before you are even halfway through the induction. Now, we see this in stage hypnosis all the time. A volunteer who has been under once will drop the second they hear the word sleep. And it's not because the hypnotist is a magician. It's because the volunteer's brain recognizes the pattern and jumps straight to the destination. So what actually slows down hypnosis is uncertainty. When you constantly change the structure, the client has to keep learning a new map. Now that creates internal noise and keeps them in an analytical state, which you don't want. Now, there is a nuance here that many hypnotists miss. While the structure of the induction can stay the same, your presence must stay alive. Now, repetition only fails when it becomes mechanical or bored. And if you recite a script like you're reading a grocery list, well, the client will feel that you lack connection. But if you deliver that same familiar induction with authority, with clarity, and real focused attention, it actually works better every time. Now, the client needs a pathway that they can trust. Familiarity isn't a weakness, it is a leverage. An induction is essentially a sequence of responses, and it might start with an eye fixation, a shift in breath, the body softening, and finally, eye closure. Now, the words that you use are not just the steering wheel, they're the real work where it's happening in your timing and the client's condition response. So, if an induction worked well in session 1, don't throw it away. Keep it, refine it, use it as a reliable doorway. Now, how do we actually implement this? Well, it starts with the first session, because your job isn't just to get them into hypnosis, it's to study how they go there. So watch their physiology. Did their eyelids flutter during the eye fixation? Did they take a deep sigh at a specific suggestion? Did their jaw soften when you mentioned letting go? Now you're learning their unique roots. And in the second session, you don't act like you're starting from zero. That is a huge mistake. Instead, you talk to the part of them that already knows the way. So before you even start the formal induction, you frame it for them. Now you might say, well, last time your mind and body learned a specific pattern of settling and focusing. So today, you might notice you go there even more easily because some part of you already knows this road. Now, this creates an expectancy frame because you are telling their nervous system, don't start from scratch, continue from where we left off. So let's look at a practical model you can use. If your induction is built around eye focus and breathing, well, you can use these specific transitions to bridge the session. So you could say, go ahead, find that spot again, that's right. And as you look there, you don't have to force anything. Just let your mind remember what it learned last time. The way your eyes began to focus, the way your breathing began to settle, and the way your body followed along without effort. Now, why is this so effective? Because you're not demanding a brand new experience. You're inviting recognition. Recognition is much easier for the brain than trying. And you continue to say this, and maybe this time the eyes relax sooner, maybe the breath softens faster. Your system already knows how to respond. So in a moment, those eyes can close the same way they closed before, or even easier, because now there is a memory of what it feels like to let go. So by attaching the suggestion to a known memory, you create a much stronger expectation of success. Now, the real question isn't whether your induction and deepener is new. The real question is whether you are leading with the same certainty and presence every time you open that door. Because to many practitioners, they try to impress the client with variety, but the client doesn't need variety. They need a pathway they can trust. So when you run your next session, just ask yourself this: am I trying to invent a new trick? Or am I building a powerful mental pathway my client can enter faster every single time? So embrace the repetition, use the familiar, build that neurological momentum, because when the doorway is reliable, the real work, the transformation can happen much deeper. So thanks for watching my video. If you're interested and you haven't already completed our courses, check us out at the hypnotherapylearninghub.com, and I'll see you in the next video.